Hey, welcome to day 216, 2nd Chronicles, 2nd Kings, Jeremiah, and this day is really a huge day here. So the reading didn't have much in it, but it had one thing in it that alludes to something else, and I really need to expand on it. So I'm going to be talking about a couple things outside of what our reading is, so when we get to that reading, we know what it's talking about. Okay, so your kings, we've gone through. I'm not going to read any of this stuff until I get to that one point. You have Josiah's kids, Jehoahaz and Eliakim, who becomes Jehoiakim. And then there's another one after that sounds just like that. So Jehoahaz reigned for 3 months. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. Pharaoh came and took him away, and he installed his brother Eliakim, and he renamed him Jehoiakim. And he reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. So both of them are evil. And that's the kings. And then they chase after Uriah, one of the prophets, and they kill him. He goes to Egypt, and then they went, I think it was Jehoiakim that sent people after him, brought him back, and he killed him with a sword. Jeremiah is threatened, but God promised to protect him throughout the book, so don't worry about that. He'll be fine. But they threatened to kill him all the time. Now, so let's get into Jeremiah 25. There it is. And read this special thing. You need to mark it. And I'm going to tell you these other verses. I want you to mark and mark and mark and highlight and highlight and highlight and hold on to them. 25:11. This entire land will become a desolate wasteland. Israel and her neighboring lands will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. So Babylon is being used by God to punish Israel and Jerusalem. So Judah. So he's going to exile them. They're going to be gone for 70 years. Okay? So what to do? You read that. You just kind of read over that. It's no big deal. But it's absolutely a huge deal. So let's go to Nehemiah, which we haven't read yet. Nehemiah, where are you at? Yeah, back here. Nehemiah 2. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. So Nehemiah is a prophet, and he is in. Let's. I'm out of order here. Let's read Ezekiel 4:4, and then we're coming back to that. Ezekiel 4:4. So God, I guess I should probably read something before it. So he's talking to Ezekiel. God's telling Ezekiel to do something. Take a large clay brick and set it down in front of you. Then draw a map of the city of Jerusalem on it. Show the city under siege. Build a wall around it so no one can escape. Set up the enemy camp and surround the city with siege ramps and battering rams. Then take an iron griddle and place it between you and the city. Turn toward the city and demonstrate how harsh this siege will be against Jerusalem. This will be a warning to the people of Israel. All right, so he's taking Ezekiel and he's showing right before Babylon comes and takes them all away. This is what he's saying to him. And he's showing this is what happens. So people that walk by, they see all this. Verse 4, and you need to highlight it, mark it down, and earmark it. Now lie on your left side and place the sins of Israel on yourself. You are to bear their sins for the number of days you lie there on your side. I am requiring you to bear Israel's sins for 390 days. 1 day for each year of their sin. So he has to lie on his side for 390 days. For each day of their sins. After that, turn over and lie on your right side for 40 days. 1 day for each year of Judah's sin. That's 430 days. Now, I'm not going to get into this. When we get into Daniel, I'll talk about the days. Each day is a year. 40 days in the... when Moses and the people were defying God, so he put them in the wilderness for 40 days. So in that time, a day, they used to mark a year. So a day, days, and half a day or whatever. You'll read that in Daniel. All right, so we'll talk about it in Daniel. So that's 390 days, 40 days, 430 days. That represents 430 years that they're going to be in exile, okay? So you look at Jeremiah, it says, Israel and her neighboring lands will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. All right, so there's 430 years that we're talking about, but it says here, but 70 years, Jerusalem will be desolate. What happens after the 70 years? What happened to the 430 years? Okay, so now we go to Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. So Nehemiah's, at this point, in captivity. Early the following spring, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself, but King Artaxerxes is the son or grandson of the king that married Esther. So again, when we read Esther, we'll get into that as well, okay? I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. Then I was terrified, but I replied, long live the king. How can I be sad? For the city where my ancestors were buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Verse 6, the king with the queen sitting beside him asked, how long will you be gone? Because Nehemiah asked to go back and rebuild Jerusalem. And he says, when will you return? After I told him how long I'd be gone, the king agreed to my request. So 70 years later, here's Nehemiah in front of the king. And the king's going to allow him to go back and rebuild Jerusalem. So Zechariah, I have marked down here, Zechariah 1:12. Upon hearing this, the angel of the Lord prayed this prayer. O Lord of heaven's armies, for 70 years now you have been angry with Jerusalem and the towns of Judah. How long until you again show mercy to them? And the Lord spoke kind and comforting words to the angel who talked with me. Okay, that's just a reference of the 70 years. Okay, so what I want to say is, without bringing up all the other readings, is that you take, we'll get to the reading. I'm jumping ahead here. So 430, take out your calculator. 430 minus your 70 years, that's 360. Multiply that by 7, and you get 2,520 years. Why would I multiply by 7? Because way back when, I alluded to this in Numbers or Deuteronomy, I think it was... Deuteronomy 26. This is important. That's why I'm taking my time to go over this. Nope, it's Numbers. Leviticus 26. That's what it was. What's it say? Over and over and over again in Leviticus 26. I'll just read one of these. And if in spite of all this you still disobey me, I will punish you 7 times over for your sins. Look how long it's taken God to exile and punish the final remnant in Israel, in Judah, in Jerusalem. And they're going to be taken for 430 years into exile. Except after 70 years, God says, enough. You've been brutalized enough. So God's not making a mistake. God had a plan. 360 years are left of their exile after the 70 years. And when he sends them back, not all the people want to go back. And we will read this. And that angers God. And if, in spite of all this, you still disobey me, I will punish you 7 times over. And you multiply that by 7, you get 2,520 years. From that time period, it is almost perfectly, not quite, because we have no idea about our calendar, but really, really close to May 15th, 1948. I put the date on there always just to remember it. May 15th, 1948 is really close to the 2,520 years where Israel got their land back in one day. We read that in Isaiah. Absolutely crazy. But really it's not. It's perfect. So I wanted to point that out. Please mark that stuff. We're going to be reading it, and I'll be alluding to this more and more as we get closer to it, but just to kind of show you how that all worked together. So that's your day 216. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you tomorrow.